can I talk to the listener that might say, well, crap, I can't do this because I don't have money or I don't have time. That was me when I got started in 2016, that first land deal for $285. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I didn't have the money either. Like I had to like have a buyer lined up because I was like, I can't get stuck with this land. If I leave $285 into this land, I might not be able to afford diapers next week. That's how it was. But you don't need money to buy real estate. You do not need money to become a multimillionaire in real estate investing.
You found the Real Estate Law Podcast because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. If you're a real estate professional or looking to build real estate expertise, then welcome to the conversation and discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com.
Welcome to the Real Estate Law Podcast. Thanks again for listening to another episode. We hope that you'll enjoy this one. We have a repeat guest, Rory, for the first time. Besides you and I, we have welcomed somebody back onto the podcast because we had such an excellent discussion with Brent Bowers during episode number 55 last year. We had to do an update.
So we have our first returning contestant today. And, for those of you who are real estate investors, kind of stuck in this market, not finding creative options to get involved, we wanted to bring Brent back to discuss investing in land in ways that you can make that profitable and cash flowing asset. So, Jason, can you remind our listeners?
Yes, I will reintroduce Brent. Brent is with Land Sharks. Brent used to work with Wholesaling Inc., right?
I do.
Yeah. You know what? A friend of ours was at a conference that you guys did recently, right? Where was that, Florida?
It was in Tempe, Arizona. And yeah, I spoke on the last day. They saved the best for the last.
Yeah, I saw you were on the main stage. I was messaging her saying, hey, did you see Brent Bowers down there? He's been on the podcast. We have him coming up again. And she's like, Brent, he's one of the big speakers at this conference. So Brent, we'd like to welcome you back to the Real Estate Law Podcast. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. I had such a good time with you guys last year. So I'm so happy to see your faces again.
Yeah. Hey, you got to show us the rhino. Right behind you. There's the rhino. Yeah, I love the rhino last time. I think you mentioned something about rhino has to keep charging forward instead of a cow that just kind of sits there and starts eating, right?
You got a good memory, Jason.
Yeah. So Brent is an expert in purchasing land, all right? We've talked about infill lots. We've talked about buying land. Brent had a strategy last year where you're also a coach on, you teach a lot of people how to do this. You partnered up with your students. Some of the beauty of your system is that it leads to annuities where you're collecting money on a passive level that allows you to take time off if you want to. You just mentioned off camera that you're going to be taking 6 weeks going to Costa Rica, which sounds fantastic. But a lot has changed in the past year. Interest rates have shot up and stayed up since we last spoke. For us, for Rory and I remember filming this in our temporary housing in Boston a year ago. We've since moved to Newburyport. I've left my job and we purchased. Yeah, I know, right? Well, it wasn't my choice, but it's okay because it was going to happen a couple months later anyway. And what we did is we purchased some more short-term rentals. We launched another short-term rental on that land we talked about. On the last podcast, we were talking about buying some land in New Hampshire. I re-listened to it, and there was only a foundation on that land when we recorded. Well, fast forward to today, there's a gorgeous house there that is getting booked a lot on Airbnb and Vrbo, and we love staying in that house too. So a lot's been happening on our side. Brent, what's been happening on your side?
Man, I just want to ring the victory bell for you guys because that's a bunch of accomplishments. I remember the house you guys were in. So amazing kudos for you. You guys are taking action. Like it's a lot of work recording these episodes, just being in law. Just all the stuff you guys are accomplishing. So.
Oh, we got the bell.
Hope I didn't blow anybody's eardrums with that. But, what's been happening with me is, business is always evolving. It's always growing or dying. My team has shrank. It has absolutely shrank in the past 8 months. The interest rates rising were the best thing that could have ever happened for my company. One of the major shifts that we did was we started doing more land in higher demand areas as well as more expensive land. And let me tell you what that gave us is 1, higher profits, 2, lower volume, 3, smaller team because I don't have to pay someone to post these cheaper land deals that we sell. And they've been incredible. I will not knock them because they gave me the confidence to get this started back in 2016. I did a $285 land deal, sold it for $5,000. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. But here's the thing. Realtors don't really want to touch those $5,000 parcels because they don't make any money on that, but they're glad to sell a $50,000 parcel for you, a $100,000 parcel, a $150,000 parcel. So I have realtors now selling these parcels of land. And in essence, it's allowing me to leverage their skill, their marketing abilities, their subscriptions to all these websites that I was paying thousands of dollars a month to. One, may be more profitable. It's two, allowed me to not have as big of a team, payroll, less phone calls. So that's some of the changes. And I'd love to talk about how we're breaking that down, how other sharks, my shark community, the land sharks, is accomplishing that. Rhino and sharks, it might get a little confusing. Rhino Nation is wholesaling Inc. The land sharks we call them the sharks. You guys know what a shiver is? It's a group of sharks.
No way. I didn't know that. That's a big shift. And I'm not surprised that you're making that shift either. In the world that we're in, where another thing we've done in the past years is I joined a mastermind group for short-term rental operators. A lot of co-hosts are in that group, where they're basically looking to make money managing the properties. And it's the same mindset where they'd rather have fewer properties that make more than a ton of properties where it's just incremental revenue, one step at a time. And it's easier said than done, but strategically, I think that group and you are kind of converging on a very similar strategy, which is the bigger deals, probably just as easy to manage as the smaller ones, but the numbers are just bigger.
Yeah. It takes the same amount of time to make $100,000 net profit on one deal as it is to make $5,000, $10,000, $8,000 net profit.
Yeah. So has that changed your geographic focus?
Yes, geography has changed a little bit. And I've also, last time we spoke, I was in Florida as well. We had recently moved to Florida last time I spoke to you, but now I'm really trying to focus heavily on Florida. There's a couple other places working in as well because other house wholesalers are bringing me land deals now, or realtors are bringing me land deals. And guys, these are like free leads. The key performance indicators on these are just skyrocketing through the roof. Now, for every land offer letter I send out, basically it's a purchase agreement, the LOL. I think we actually offered that to your community last time at the landsharks.com/LOL as a land offer letter. Every one of those that I send out, I make about $4.83 back. So it costs me 82 cents to send that letter, but I get $4.83 back. So yeah, ching, like it works. If I want to make more money, more gross revenue, I send more of those out. And it's also a psychology thing. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but that's the average overall that we're sending out. But I mean, even a year ago, I was sometimes afraid to send them out. Like, oh man, do I want to send out to this area? It's going to be, about $1,000 in letters. But when I started looking at it differently, that I make $4.83 to send every one of these out, it made sending them a lot easier.
Yeah, send them all day long if you're going to keep making money that way. Are you still doing the arbitrage on these deals where you're basically getting it under contract, you're paying monthly in many situations to the people you're buying it from, and then you're finding a buyer, you're collecting a higher monthly fee, and then, the difference is basically what you're earning?
I love that you asked me that question, Jason, because I just got a letter of intent this morning for a property just like that. We have a seller. He's selling us a piece of land. He's given us 6 months to find my buyer. 6 months. And he's allowing me to market it all over the MLS. My realtor's already listed it. Our purchase agreement allows us to do that. We don't even own it yet. And we just found our buyer that's made us an offer for $230,000. And here's how it's going to work. The seller is allowing me to put a small down payment, and he's going to allow me to pay him monthly for 15 years for this property. My buyer is going to do a larger down payment to cover my down payment, to cover my realtor fees and closing costs, and still give us a little bit of cash in the very beginning. So immediate profit and forever profitable. So my buyer's also going to pay me for 30 years. Now, will it go that long? Probably not, because he's going to add fill dirt, he's going to build roads, and he's probably going to pay it off with a bank loan, but he's going to pay us 12% interest. So his purchase price is $230,000, our purchase price is $149,000.
Right.
When you're making these contracts where you have your own seller and your own buyer, how transparent are you with your end buyer about the terms you have with the seller? Are they fully aware of the arbitrage? Are they fully aware of your profit? How does that work?
Yeah, so I don't really tell my end buyer that. Basically they know I'm under contract to buy it, but I don't tell my end buyer what my terms are with the seller because it's a simultaneous closing. So it's a sandwich. It's basically a wraparound mortgage. So I am the owner of the land and the buyer is paying me. I'm paying the seller that did the seller carryback. Basically, the seller became the bank and I'm becoming the bank at the same time. So if my buyer defaults and doesn't pay, I literally have to foreclose, but I also still owe that seller. Like I'm still on the line for it. And, if I could sell it once, I can sell it again.
Yeah. Are the interest rates the same? You're getting 12% on what you're selling. What would you be paying on something like that? It's a 15-year term and a 30-year amortized term, right? So there's that difference too.
Exactly. Sometimes I get sellers that just want a higher payment and they're willing to do principal payments, AKA 0% interest. That particular deal, I'm paying 5% interest. I've paid sellers up to 9% interest. So it's that positive arbitrage you already talked about, Jason. I'm paying 5% interest on a lower amount, which is 140 or 149,000. And my buyer is paying 12% interest on 230,000. So there's about $1,100 a month difference. I'm collecting $2,200 a month. I'm paying $1,000 a month.
I love this conversation, Rory. I mean, we were just talking yesterday about subject to deals, right? Because, Rory's kind of diving down that space a little bit. And he's also working with some clients right now where there's just no housing inventory here in the Northeast. It's even worse now than a year ago. Interest rates go up and nobody wants to sell anything. And then the prices keep going up anyway. And then there's investors like us that are scratching our heads saying, what do we do next? Like, how are we going to be out there making some money beyond the portfolio that we have? Because the portfolio that we have is fine unless we want big growth. We're just taking the incremental growth on optimizing our current portfolio better. And I think that's only going to go a little bit further down the line until we get a little bit antsy and want, the next big thing.
Yeah.
So Rory, listening to this, our conversation yesterday, tell us your opinion as a real estate professional about things like this that people who are listening should be evaluating as a way to be making money in today's market.
Well, first and foremost, I don't want to date this too much, but we are talking in the second quarter of 2023. And, good deals for investors are just incredibly difficult to come by. If you're banking on sort of the 2012 model property where you would buy something and then it would instantly cash flow, you're really not going to find that in most parts of the country. So to find a good profitable deal, it takes a little bit of creativity. And that's what hopefully bringing to our listeners with Brent and some other guests is different avenues where you can invest even in this market. And what I like about this conversation about land is, one, I have a lot less familiarity with land transactions than I do with residential transactions. So I'm learning and discovering new ideas. But this is an opportunity for people to look around, even in metropolitan areas. I mean, when, hopefully the title of this episode talking about land doesn't make people assume that we're only talking about rural farmlands or ranches. We're also talking about, infill lots in suburban and metropolitan areas where there's a great deal of upside. And why I think this is a great opportunity is there are a lot less people who are interested or knowledgeable of this space. So there's an opportunity there for us as well. And, with that, I kind of want to test a couple of my assumptions of how your growth has gone from last year into this year. And you're talking about working with fewer but more valuable lots. My first assumption when I hear that is, does that mean you're moving more into metropolitan areas with your land purchases? Are you heading closer into cities, more dense suburbs?
Yes. I'm actually buying 5 acres right in Daytona Beach, 10 minutes from the beach right now on Tuesday of next week. So yes, the land has gotten way more expensive. Here's what's really cool is a lot of people stay, and me personally, I was afraid because where do I find the money? Because banks aren't lending for this. And that's an opportunity in itself because the sellers have to sell it for cheap or they have to be the bank for me. And then on the other side of the coin is I get to become the bank for people and really mark my price. But the reason why I feared going towards the metropolitan areas like you just asked, Rory, is man, that stuff's expensive. How do I come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars? Well, people are people are starting to see what I'm doing by every day I share a video on TikTok. So people are getting excited to invest their money with me. Like my in-laws have invested tons of money with me at 9% interest. And heck, I didn't even know they had money. Like it was money that they took out of the stock market, money they had sitting in their safe at home, getting raped by inflation. Look at it. If you have 100 grand sitting under your mattress or in your bank account, getting no interest, like you're pretty much losing over 7 grand a year in inflation. It's like little rats are just eating away at your cash. So I've had friends and family members and neighbors get excited to invest money with me and earn anywhere from 9 to 12% interest secured by that land. It's never going to go anywhere. It might go underwater. It might catch on fire. Someone might dig up the dirt and try and steal it, but there's more dirt underneath it. And I'm buying this stuff at like less than 60 cents on the dollar. So that one in Daytona Beach, like we're getting it at like 50 cents on the dollar.
Buying these properties, you're dealing with sellers of kind of, more unconventional asset. And I would imagine if you were to approach somebody who is selling their condo that was their primary residence, and you try to present this kind of creative transaction, it's going to be looked at funny, and it's going to, if you're successful at all, it's going to take a ton of convincing and educating. But I imagine the sellers you're dealing with, these investors of land, are at least more open-minded to, unconventional sale transactions.
Yeah, when you're dealing with someone where they live, where they've placed their head at night, or they still have their head being placed there at night, or they've raised their family, they're so much more emotional about it because, we're all told, unless you're reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, our homes are our biggest investment. Your house is your biggest investment you'll ever make in your entire life. What do investments do? They go up in value, right? So if they lived there for 20 years and raised all 3 of their children and have never cleaned the carpet or painted the walls, they still expect that investment to rise. And the only way that you're going to get that subject to existing financing deal where they have like a 3.5% interest rate, or give you a smoking hot cash deal because it's paid off, is they've got to be extremely motivated. Land sellers, they don't have to be extremely motivated. Most of the time, they're just aggravated because they owe back taxes on it, or they have never stepped foot on it. They've been paying those taxes for 20 years, or they inherited it. They live out of state. Uncle Bob left it to them and they can't stand Uncle Bob. So screw it. Let's just sell it for half the price that it's worth. Like they're not educated. They're just unattached.
Yeah. It seems like people that have the land, maybe they had a big idea as to what they wanted to do with the land if they indeed bought it themselves, and it didn't fall into their lap, and they just kind of never got there. So you are providing that solution for an out. You're solving their problem by buying it.
That's right. Yeah. Life happened for them. Like I bought some land from a couple in Colorado. Actually, it was just a husband. Him and his wife drove through there 20 years ago. They said, honey, this would be a beautiful place to have a second vacation home. And they held on to it for 20 years, and then they had babies, and then they paid for those babies' colleges. And now they're about to start paying for the grandchildren's colleges. And it's just, life just kept happening for them. And then, she passed away, and he's like, I'm never going to go to Colorado. I just want to get rid of this.
Yeah. Let's talk about the money element of this. You did kind of touch upon it there, but traditional banks are probably not going to lend for land, right?
Most of the time, absolutely not.
Right. So if you're listening to this thinking about getting into it, the creative financing and private money, that's the way you're going to be able to get these deals done. Either you have the cash sitting under your mattress, or you have some of the cash and you can work out a deal with the owner. That's how the land sale is going to be. I mean, in our case, it was inexpensive, the land that we purchased. We bought a $26,500 lot and then a $7,000 lot. We happened to have the money or the means for the money for both of those, so I didn't have to ask a bank, or at least ask this question. But back then I probably didn't even realize that I couldn't get the land financed. The other side of the financial equation I want to talk about, because we've talked a lot about cost segregation studies on this podcast, and you can't depreciate land, obviously. Yeah. Talk about some tax strategies, if indeed there are any, with acquiring land.
Yeah. Before I do that, Jason, can I talk to the listener that might say, well, crap, I can't do this because I don't have money or I don't have time. That was me when I got started in 2016, that first land deal for $285. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I didn't have the money either. Like I had to like have a buyer lined up because I was like, I can't get stuck with this land. If I leave $285 into this land, I might not be able to afford diapers next week. That's how it was. But you don't need money to buy real estate. You do not need money to become a multimillionaire in real estate investing. So my third land deal was from a bank. It was for $25,000. I didn't have $25,000. I only had the $5,000 from that property, that parcel of land I flipped to the realtor. That first land deal I did, bought it for $285,000, sold it for $5,000, but I didn't have $25,000. And I went under contract with this bank they actually weren't paying the back taxes, so they were close to losing it to a tax lien investor, that someone that was paying those taxes to the county. And banks, like, how could this ever happen to a bank? Well, it's called pancake. When they get so many files, one gets down there and you never, like, as you're adding pancakes to the stack, you never get to that bottom pancake. And I learned that from one of my mentors, Matt Rillera, that worked in the banking industry. Then he went to the legal side. So basically they told me, like, look, we'll sell you the land for $25,000. It was worth over $100,000. I didn't have $25,000. It was almost like me coming up with $1 million at that time. And I didn't know where to find it. So I didn't sleep that Friday night that I went under contract. That Saturday morning, I went out and put signs everywhere. 44 acres, cash only, $38K. I had it under contract for $25,000. I put out 33 bandit signs that said that. 44 acres. This is right next to Schriever Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, by the way. Back in early 2017 at this point. And I found a buyer that day that we shook hands on the side of the road. I made a $13,000 assignment fee. And I took my purchase agreement that I had with the bank and I sold it to this Texan that had just sold his ranch in Texas. This guy was like 59, 60 years old. He had no clue what assignment of contract was. I barely did, but someone told me, you can just sell your contract. And the title company handled everything. I walked away with $13,000 cash in my pocket, or I shouldn't say cash, a certified check.
Right. That's great. Let's talk about the taxes then. All right. So, where does this factor into the tax strategies that a lot of people are following so religiously these days?
Yeah. You're talking to the guy that got hit with a $139,000 tax bill 2021 because there's no tax shelter for land. It's basically every dollar I made, I paid 32 cents to the IRS and then got hit with a fine because I didn't pay it off right away. So I've learned, one, hire a very good CPA that understands cost segregation that you just mentioned, Jason, because houses and buildings and commercial buildings, we can write off, basically depreciate that building. I bought an office building, started picking up random rentals. I flipped a few houses as well. I flipped a house about a year ago that we renovated. I had a contractor. So I took land profits and I was like feeding my ego, and we found out about this house from one of our land sellers. So I bought the house too. We renovated it. We fixed it up to the T. Well, it was a soldier that bought it in the military in Colorado Springs. And he said, he messaged me about a year later and he wasn't happy with the house. There was some problems, a lot of problems. And I was like, man, I had a really good contractor that was licensed, insured, and bonded. That was a beautiful house. Like, send me a list. Like, tell me all the things that went wrong. And I started noticing he had some buyer's remorse. He was prepared to go to his next duty station if he would have sold that house. And this is happening right now. If he would have sold that house, he would have lost so much money in paying a realtor. So May 1st of this month, I bought that house back subject to existing financing that you just mentioned for exactly what he owes on the mortgage. He's got a 3.8% interest rate. I'm going to make maybe a couple $100 a month renting it out net, but things always break. So really I won't be net positive on it. I already rented it out to my accountant's daughter. That house is going to save me at least $20,000 in taxes for 2023.
Yeah. So it sounds like the key is combining the land sales with other real estate investing. If you're purchasing offices and flipping houses and purchasing assets that can be depreciated and bonus depreciated in the environment that we're in, is that kind of the 1-2 punch that you're recommending?
Well, yeah, my first recommendation is make money first. And once you figure that out, keep more of the money you make. And, as we grow in income, our expenses increase. So there's so many things we can talk about. But yes, everything you said except for flipping houses. I don't flip houses anymore.
All right. No more flipping houses. We moved on from that. So Rory, this is all a very present and relevant conversation to what we were talking about yesterday. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Just looking around to see creative ways. And, I was talking about kind of the metropolitan areas because, we're located in Boston, and, a lot of people don't have a ton of imagination, and to some degree, myself included, about investing in other parts of the country. We kind of know what we know. We know it's in our own backyard. But what I want to say to people who are similarly located is that this is something that exists here too. This is something that exists in our suburbs. This is something that exists, certainly within a 2-hour drive from the heart of the city. One other angle that I wanted to talk to you about here with the land properties is just how to, pitch this to sellers that you're purchasing it from. We're talking about the tax advantages for you in purchasing it, investing in this, but there are some tax opportunities for the seller of the land, particularly if they otherwise would face a lump sum capital gain on their land. Remember, they weren't able to depreciate it. They don't have a ton of tax benefits themselves as long-time holders of the land. So if they're facing a long-term capital gain, there are some advantages to sell to somebody when the deal is structured so that it would pay them over time. Is that right? I don't want to go into details and give hard tax advice to listeners, but that's part of the pitch, I think, to the sellers.
Yeah, if it's completely unimproved, there's not even a culvert on the land, the IRS allows them to break up their profit over 30 years or however long you make payments to that seller, and it's only realized profit that year. Plus, it's like most of the time these sellers don't need $30,000 or $40,000 up front because they have no clue what they're going to do with it. Sometimes it's only like, I need $8,000 to pay for tuition for one of my grandchildren. So just be there ready to hear what your seller needs and figure out a way to come up with a solution, because really we're just problem solvers. And it's not even a problem. It's just a challenge. We just got to figure out a way to do it.
So talk a little bit about the students that have inquired in the past year or so. So new people that you're working with the Land Sharks program, what are some of the questions they're asking that maybe you hadn't heard in the past? Or what is the type of new student who's coming your way that maybe was a little bit different from the people that you started working with a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, my sharks, they get past the point of assigning their contracts because, they make $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 doing it. Now it's like, Brent, I want to buy this stuff and I want to sell or finance it. Where do I find the money for that? And, we walk through that every single week on the support calls, where to find money, because it's everywhere. Like right now, I'm personally looking for more capital to do land deals. I'm buying 7 land deals in the next 7 days. And here's the thing, like it's up several $100,000 worth of land that I'm getting great deals on it, less than 50 cents on the dollar, but everybody runs out of money, or I run out of money, maybe not everybody. So I'm partnering with lenders. I'm partnering with lending partners. So that's one of the main questions I feel like so many people ask, because it's not a matter of where can I find the land deals, they're everywhere. Now it's like, where do I find the money? Even though that's everywhere, most people have a hard time with that. And I used to as well. Like I felt like I was like begging. No, like my personal assistant, my executive assistant, Kelly, she's going to make like $5,500 this year in interest lending to her boss. Like I don't think of myself as her boss. Like she's literally my partner because she's my executive assistant. But she's ecstatic about it. And I'm ecstatic. Like she just extended one of her loans. We're paying her 1% on that amount. Like she's making money.
Wow. Spoken a lot about private capital on this podcast since you were last on. So when you're looking for financing, are those the types of people you're going to?
I'm talking to friends. I go to the gym at 9:00 in the morning for a reason, because that's when the old retired rich guys are working out. And they ask, what are you doing? Like, you're so fit and you're so good. No, I'm just kidding. They don't say that. But they're like, like a lot of times they ask me what I'm up to. Like, even though I got my headphones on, and we become friends. And like, I work with people from my gym. Like one of my next lenders, he's in Puerto Rico right now. If you golf, go golf on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, because the guys out there golfing, like they aren't worried about money on a Tuesday afternoon.
That's a great strategy. It's like if you're looking for a contractor, walk around Home Depot or Lowe's at like 7 a.m. and, you'll find some people and look at the vans that are outside. I don't go to the gym as religiously as you do, unfortunately. But, when I do go, I also tend to go in the middle of the day because it's not as crowded, right? But I thought differently of the people there. I'm like, who are these people that are at the gym in the middle of the day? But you just answered that question.
Don't you people work?
Yeah, and they're probably looking at me and say, don't you work? What are you doing here right now? We've spoken with some people that are running funds, that are looking for syndication deals. They're doing apartment complexes and they're vetting developers that have deals and they're bringing those to, their audience of folks that are looking for passive income deals. Are those also the kind of people that could be financing land deals?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've paid hard money lenders before. I haven't created a fund. Mostly because that seems like it'd be a job. Yeah, absolutely. Those guys that put into funds. I mean, I personally have invested into funds. Like I got a 19-unit apartment complex. Like I'm not the man on that deal. Like I just put some money into it.
Yeah. Two more things I want to talk about. One is time freedom, because part of why you're doing this is for the time freedom. In pivoting your strategy a bit towards some, fewer, bigger deals, that's allowing you some more time freedom. Clearly, you're literally going to go sit on the beach for a little bit, but
you're my mind because I'll be so bored for 6 weeks.
Well, right, because you're a hustler. I mean, you're doing 7 deals in 7 days, right? That's kind of like in your DNA now. But talk about the time freedom that this gives you, or if the shift in the past year has been a result of you wanting a little bit more of your time back.
That's the main thing. Is like I was running from a problem in 2016 that was to get out of the military, because like my first marriage failed because I was gone for almost like 3 out of 4 years with the military, basic training, AIT, training for that first combat deployment, doing that 1 year deployment and then coming back for 1 year and then deploying again. Like I couldn't sustain that life. And then I met another beautiful woman, like Emily's my wife, and like we start having babies, and now there's a babies involved. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm scared to death history is going to repeat itself. So I found land investing to provide that passive income to allow me to quit that job. And then here's the thing, Parkinson's law happens. The task will expand with the time you give it. So what happened? I scaled. I had almost 15 team members. And then I was freaking out, losing my mind once again. History is repeating itself. Like I'm addicted to work. I'm working like 14 hours a day now. My wife's like, you didn't promise me this.
Right.
So I had to compress back. We rented out the office, like basically went lean, less things. I reported all my credit cards and debit cards lost so I can cancel all those phantom charges. I had 6 DocuSign logins, all these Adobe accounts of people that didn't even work with me anymore. So I've got the time freedom back again. That's why we took off in March. That's why we're taking off at the end of June. And because I created myself another job, but I really wanted a business that served me. And that's why land investing gives me the time freedom, because you can do that. You can compress again because, as income grows, our expenses grow, and so does our time involved.
It's an interesting inflection point that you reached. You're scaling, you're working hard, as a lot of us are doing. And then you reach that point where you're like, I need to pull back on everything. and I think that's a natural human behavior, because you layer one thing on top of the other, and it's creep of 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, a $60 recurring charge here, a $10 recurring charge here. Next thing you know, thousands of dollars of subscriptions across multiple businesses, and you have no time for anything because you've committed yourself to lots of these different types of things. So I'm glad you've identified that. And I think that a lot of people, as they're scaling their businesses, they're going to have that moment to sit back and say, whoa, wait a second. What have I created around me? Like, I need less of this. I want to dovetail into the question about veterans, because you are a veteran yourself. And one thing that, you apparently like doing, which I give you lots of credit for, is working with veterans and teaching them the things that you've learned on how to generate monthly passive income. Like, tell us what you're doing these days with some of your veteran clients and partners.
Yeah, we have a lot of veterans, active military, that are in the shark. Like they're in the shark community, they're in the land sharks, and they're crushing it. Like they're absolutely crushing it. And what I love about it is, like, a lot of veterans getting out of the military, they'll wait to be done with the military before they start building their next career. But if I can show you a way to get that $6,000 or $7,000 a month in passive income before you leave the military, you don't have to do anything else out after the military. So it's been a fun time.
We've talked about the overlap. I mentioned that I left my job last year, but fortunately we had been doing short-term rentals for years. So it wasn't like an abrupt, cut point. It was a transition. And I think that's key for a lot of people that are looking to leave the military, leave their job, leave whatever situation they're in right now. Start the second thing now, right? Like have there be overlap. Figure out how to work at nighttime or learn this thing, or, don't just have an immediate break point, because it's going to be tough for a lot of different reasons. It might be tough to get financing. It might be tough to have credibility with banks and other people that suddenly you've left this situation and now I think I want to do that. If there's some overlap of a couple of years, you can prove that you've been doing this thing. If you're in the military, but you also have kind of a little portfolio of 1 or 2 properties, you've done a couple land deals, then when you retire from the military, you're not just out there figuring out what you want to do next. When you leave your job, if it's a non-military job, you're not just saying, I want to go try this. You've already been doing it for a couple of years. So people that are listening to this, or you have a vision to leave the situation you're in right now, try to build a 6-month, 12-month, 24-month plan and begin that today, to move to that next step.
Yeah, start taking small steps today.
Yeah. Rory, we've already asked our final 3 questions of Brent, but I think we should wrap it up somehow, with one final question that we probably, have not asked him or asked other guests. But before we ask that question, Rory, do you have anything else that you want to throw out there?
I just find this kind of so interesting because it's opening up, I've been doing real estate now for 12 years, and I'm learning something new every time, new opportunities, new ways of thinking about things. And I know 5 years from now, there'll be something else that, meets the needs of that time. So I just want to thank you for, opening understanding of what's possible in this space, and expanding our own knowledge and focus in it.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We normally ask, the second of our final questions is tell us something that happened early in your life or career that impacts the way that you're working today. But I'm going to actually vary that question. I'm going to say, Brent, tell us something that's happened since we last spoke, since a year ago, that is impacting the way that you're working today.
I started, realizing like I don't have to work for work's sake, just like Tim Ferriss talks about. Like more is not better. More time, more money, more toys, more sex, more food, more candy, more ice cream. Like it's just about being happy with what you got and taking the time that God's given you to be here. So I've been out of balance for a while, with physical, with mental, with spiritual, with family, with work. So it's just trying to rebalance and, content, like it talks about in the Bible.
Yeah. I might disagree about the ice cream comment there, because I think more ice cream is always a good thing. Hey, Brent, where can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you, work with your coaching programs, make lots of money doing land deals alongside you?
Yeah, go to thelandsharks.com right now. Schedule a call. Fill out that form. If you're 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, don't even fill out the form. Like I can only take 3 to 5 people a month into the Sharks course. So I'm looking to work with people that want to change their lives. And if you want to watch some videos and learn more about land investing, go to TikTok, Brent L. Bowers 1. I do a TikTok every day talking about how to make money in land.
Yeah, and he's not dancing on his TikTok, so it's legitimate information.
No dancing.
No dancing.
One time. Just once. Only once.
Okay. Rory, are you dancing on TikTok?
Never. That will not happen, no.
No. Where can people find you?
You can find me not on TikTok, but you can find me here in my office, Next Home Titletown. That's nexthometitletown.com, or through my law practice, Urban Village Legal. That's urbanvillagelegal.com.
Yeah, we're going to have to get on TikTok. We're not there yet, Brent. So you'll be our coach for TikTok and for buying land.
Just record. Just hit the record button. Don't put a content hat on and then my work hat. Just record your work and then there's your content.
There's the content. That is great advice. Brent, you're full of great advice. This is why we love having you back on the podcast. If you want to be on this podcast or you have questions for us or for me or for Brent, you can reach me, Jason, at nexthometitletown.com, or drop us a comment anywhere that you are listening or watching this, and we will respond to that. That's it. Brent, It's been a pleasure. It's great seeing you again. Wishing you continued success in your journey, your life journey, your professional journey. And we will continue having you back on the podcast. You're a beacon of light and you're lots of great information.
God bless, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been the Real Estate Law Podcast. Because real estate is more than just pretty pictures, and law goes well beyond the paperwork and courtroom arguments. We're powered by Next Home Titletown, Greater Boston's progressive real estate brokerage. More at nexthometitletown.com. And Urban Village Legal, Massachusetts Real Estate Counsel, serving savvy property owners, lenders, and investors. More at urbanvillagelegal.com. Today's conversation was not legal advice, but we hope you found it entertaining and informative. Discover more at realestatelawpodcast.com. Thank you for listening.